Today's episode topic is incredibly close to my heart because it's completely changed the way I approach life. For so long, I thought confidence was something you either had or you didn't. I thought I needed more certainty, more reassurance, more proof that I was making the right choices. But what I've realized is that confidence isn't what comes first. Self-trust does. I've gone from panicking when life didn't go according to plan to seeing challenges as opportunities to pause, reassess, and adapt. And that hasn't happened because life's become easier. It's happened because I've become someone who trusts that whatever happens, I will figure out the next step. In today's episode, I'm going to share some of my mindset shifts that have helped me build that self-trust. And like everything, it's not an overnight fix. It's not a miracle solution. It's a muscle that you have to flex and train and continuously work on, and it gets stronger over time. We'll also talk about why the calmest people often outperform the strongest or the most skilled people, and why waiting for confidence might be the very thing keeping you stuck. If you've been waiting for permission to back yourself, I hope that this episode is the reminder that the only permission you've ever needed is your own. Thank you for being here again for the Can I Get a Refill podcast. If you're new, I'm Steph. I'm your host, and I help women stop pouring from an empty cup and start building a life that actually supports them. If that's something of interest to you, you should hit subscribe and stick around. I also recommend jumping on the website, www.canigetarefillpodcast.com.au, linked below, to download your free ebook on 7 steps to protect your energy and fill up your cup. Every area of your life comes back to the relationship you have with yourself, so make sure it's a really strong one. Download it today and make yourself your number one priority. Okay? And let's jump into the episode. My friends, this is a very important episode, not just for you, but for me. I wanted to do an episode on mindset shifts, and I thought that's a bit broad, so I'm going to narrow it down to a very specific topic. Now, I always say, everything in life comes back to the relationship you have with yourself, but the crux of that relationship is the trust you have in yourself. Now, it's different for everybody. It's different for depending on your upbringing. I definitely think self-trust has been harder for women as a whole. There's just been so many areas where we're treated as the sidekick, or, we've all been in situations with our male partners where the conversations are aimed at him rather than you. I grew up in a home where they knew I was smart, they knew I was capable, but it was pipe down and let the adults talk when we're out in public. I'm not saying I was completely silenced, but I was talking with a mum at the playground the other day, and she was saying they always go out to dinner every Friday night instead of getting takeaway, and their daughter loves it, and their daughter's a toddler, and she orders, she'll give everyone's order from the menu, and she'll ask for the check at the end. And I said, that's fantastic. That's really building her self-esteem, her self-trust. She's going to trust her voice when she's an adult if she's been flexing that muscle since toddler age. And I was never given the space to do that, not in my family home and not in certain relationships. It's always been, the men or the older people. And when you're the youngest of your entire family with all the relatives, when is your turn to talk? When is your turn to be in charge, to take charge, to sit down at a restaurant and order for all the adults at the table? And it might sound like a small little thing, but that's the start of something big. Now, every bad choice I've made in my life that has harmed me or just set me back has come from me not trusting myself, not backing myself, just not knowing myself. So I know that had I learned all these tactics when I was young, I would have avoided a lot of harm to myself. I've no regrets. That's why I'm sitting here today passing on the messages, but learn from my mistakes. Don't repeat what I did. Do as I say, not as I did. And I always, you're always hearing people talk about confidence, and that confidence comes first before you make those big choices or do those bold and brazen things. And what I've realized is that confidence is a byproduct. The thing that came first was self-trust. Self-trust means you don't have all the answers now, but you trust that you're resourceful enough to figure it out. As I touched on in the beginning, the mindset shifts that I've come across, none of them made life easier. None of them removed obstacles or challenges. What they did was change the way I reacted to them. Now, I was always a very reactive person. Any sort of trauma is stored in your body. So I always say my mind knows what to do, but my nervous system hasn't quite caught up. We're still on the path. But my instinct was always to panic. And now, even if I get the for 1 second, I'll catch myself and I'll talk myself through. And there's a calmness, there's a confidence, there's a certainty that I know that I've been through things before, that I'm very smart and I'm very resourceful and I will get through them. When I was younger and I used to perform and sing, I still have them. They're dusty in my laundry at the moment. Little scrapbooks that I would put together of, like vision board, but I have like 3 A4 books all full because the board couldn't hold everything I wanted. So I had, the house I wanted, the career I wanted, the traveling. I was not much of the, wife and babies thing, but I remember having emerald cut engagement rings. I was obsessed with those. And then when it came time to get my engagement ring, it turns out they didn't suit my chubby little fingers, so I got a round one. But I had a picture of Beyonce. It was the most beautiful picture. It was one of her very first solo tours. And it's a gorgeous silhouette shot where the light was coming from behind. So you just see her silhouette and she's standing there with the mic and her gorgeous long curly hair. And the quote was something like, "If there's anyone I can count on, it's myself." And I love that so much. And, she's one of the most decorated artists in Grammy history. So there's no coincidence that career came about because she trusted herself. It's not just about talent. There are a lot of people with a voice like Beyonce, but there is no one who's ever performed like Beyonce. She's phenomenal. And that doesn't mean that she never got nervous walking on stage. That doesn't mean that she didn't second guess herself when walking into a record label. But she went through with it. That whole feel the fear and do it anyway. I used to wait I was always the perfectionist personality and the procrastinator, waiting for the perfect set of circumstances. A, they don't exist. There is no perfect set of circumstances. But B, I've realized now that jump in, I'll figure it out. Shift number 1 is to stop asking yourself, what if it goes wrong? And spin it to, what would I do if it does go wrong? There's something about this that removes the fear, because your brain then starts looking for solutions rather than disasters. When you're focusing on the outcome, you're just going to panic and focus on the fear. But if you focus on the resourceful way you'll get out of it, because things go wrong all the time, that's okay. When you ask yourself that question, you no longer need certainty. You just need resourcefulness. And you are very resourceful. My best reference for this is Michael Phelps, presumably one of the most decorated swimmers in history. He's phenomenal. Now, most major athletes visualize. Visualization is very important in the manifestation process. But they usually visualize the good stuff, standing on the podium, receiving a trophy, completing the race with a PB, whatever it is. He still visualizes that, but he also visualizes things going wrong. And what that's done for him, he says, is that he's able to come up with solutions so that if and when those things do go wrong in the race, he doesn't panic like the people swimming next to him. He taps back into that memory in his visualization of, this is what I did when that went wrong. I'll just follow suit, like muscle memory. It removes the fear, it removes the panic, so your brain is able to focus on the solution rather than the fear. I've only just recently launched a coaching business. It's something that's just called to me for a while. It's something that makes me jump out of bed so excited to dive into. I don't know how that's going to unfold, but I'll figure it out along the way. When I started this podcast 2 years ago, I had no idea how I was going to do it all. No, and I'm a technophobe. I'm so scared of learning new things like that. I had no idea how I'd be able to come up with the content all the time, how I'd be able to find guests. We're, 80-something episodes in? I'm now weekly. My audience is growing. Every single episode, my audience is increasing on the downloads. I don't even currently have time to reach out to all the guests I keep screenshotting that I want to come on the show because I've got so many PR agents sending me phenomenal guests to me. This is a wonderful problem to have. I can barely fit in. My episodes are booked up nearly for the rest of the year. But what I did for one of the first times in my life was I didn't project too far ahead. It's like that, is it a religious thing where, how does it go? Some churchy friends helped me, something about jumping off a thing and not seeing all the steps, but trusting that God will put the steps in front of you. Or I always talk about, like, if you're driving from Sydney to Perth, you don't need to see the entire path. You really only need to see as far as your headlights will go. So what's that, 10 to 30 metres in front of you? And you can get there from there. You don't need to project all the way ahead. And you trust that you'll figure it out as you go along. When I was pregnant, I wasn't a real pregnancy person, and I was freaking out when people were like recommending books and podcasts, and I was like, I don't want to know. I don't want to know. Like it gave me severe panic to project ahead. I just kept saying, I just need to know what I need to do for the next week. That's it. So I would check what size, he was and what I had to eat, what I couldn't eat. That was it. And that helped me stay so calm because it was all so new. So if I am lucky to get pregnant again a second time, I'm not going to have the panic because I remember it. Everything new is scary, that's for sure. And I constantly reference Marie Forleo, who came up with the line, everything is figure-outable. She wasn't selling optimism. She was teaching resourcefulness. Shift number 2, become the flexible reed, not the tall, proud oak. I heard this maybe 10 years ago and it shifted a lot. I'm a very visual person, and this story really gives me a good visual when I think about it. So a lot of people will see an oak tree standing and think that's, it's tall and it's strong and it's proud. But when a very, very strong wind comes, it doesn't bend, it splits, it struggles, it's impacting it negatively. The plant that survives a big, strong storm is the flexible reed that moves. I always picture, at the front of car yards where they have those balloon men with their arms flailing like that. Like you're just going with the breeze. I was always the stiff and rigid person because I'm like, no, I don't want people to take advantage of me. I'm going to stand tall and proud. But changes will arise. Circumstances will come up. And when you're flexible and you roll with the punches, you're going to have a better outcome. So the oak appears powerful and the reed appears weak, yet storms reveal the opposite. The oak resists reality, the reed adapts to it. This can be used in so many different areas in life. So there's so many people, men and women really, who think that strength means never crying, never changing your mind, never pivoting, never failing. But strength is adapting. Showing your emotions, that's a strength. Changing course because you've changed your mind, that's just smart. And failure is just absolutely vital. It's part of the process because you figure out what doesn't work before you figure out what does. Every successful person you admire has changed direction dozens of times. When challenging situations arise, don't dig your heels in. Reassess the situation and work out how you can pivot. It's never the challenges that arise or the perceived disasters. It's your reaction to it. Because two different people can have completely different reactions to the same situation. Be the flexible reed. Shift number 3, green means go. I referenced this not too long ago in a manifestation episode, and I am reusing it because it is so impactful and it has been such a big thing in my life. Now, I think that in every area of my life, I was waiting for permission for everything. It was the way I was conditioned, because if I ever did anything the way I wanted to do it, I was scolded, I was reprimanded. So there was a fear around me making my own decisions or choices. But what happened was when I did what everyone else told me to do, there was an inner resistance. There was something that felt icky and just not right. And then it'll come out in bad ways. You can internalize it. It can come out as health issues, or you can externalize it and it can come out in rage. I've done both. Now, I didn't get my driver's license until I was 24, so that was a little bit older to start with, but I used to sit at traffic lights. Say it's a three-lane road, and I'm in the middle and the light turns green. For years, I would look to the left, look to the right to see if the other cars would go before I would go, thinking maybe I misread the situation. I mean, how ridiculous is that? There's nothing more basic than the green light means go, the amber means slow down, the red means don't go. And I would wait for safety in numbers. Now, I'm not saying don't check that there's not idiots speeding through. If the path is clear and the situation is safe, you go. You do not wait for permission, because green means go. How often in your life have you done that? Have you waited for others to pave the way first? Have you waited for permission to do something? Honestly, as women, I know we've done this in so many different areas. I just don't do it anymore. And the The traffic light, it's a small thing, but it's a huge thing because it was my analogy for life. It was the catalyst for me going, oh no, girl, you go when it's your turn to go, regardless of what others are doing. Connect it to different areas of your life. Is there a business you want to launch and you've been waiting? Did you want to post certain things online? Now, this is a big thing that I'm starting to do more, and I didn't for so long. Why? Because I was afraid I'd be cringy. And what I've realized is I would absolutely much rather lose followers because they'll be the wrong followers that are not meant for my content and my voice. I would much rather people think I was cringe, and it's always the people you know, it's never the strangers, than live in fear. I hate living in fear. How many times have you not applied for a job thinking you were not qualified enough? And the stats are astounding at how many men will just apply for jobs that they are so underqualified for. And women, generally, on the whole, don't. Have audacity. Be audacious. What is the worst that can happen? You're told no? Big deal. Big deal. You will survive. You are resourceful. This can relate to anything, leaving a relationship, changing jobs, moving house, whatever your gut is telling you to do knows what you need. Stop looking to the left and right. This actually can be related back to Michael Phelps as well, because I remember seeing this thing on Instagram where he's swimming and he's just focused on the finish line and the swimmer next to him is focused on him. And it was such a great image for staying in your own lane. Who do you think is going to win that race? The person focusing on the finish line, not the person focusing on the competition. Don't worry about what people next to you are doing. Trust yourself. Back yourself. And green means go. Shift 4 is calm always wins. Now, I am Sicilian. I'm a Cancerian. I have a temper. That's my natural state. That's what I grew up around. So being calm is not necessarily my baseline. And having years of stored trauma means that there's more of a panic mode in me than other people. I remember a little while ago, my husband was like, I think we were tired. Leo hadn't slept. And he was like, it's so jumpy, like if there was a noise. And I was like, if you grew up with the circumstances that I did and then lived in a violent relationship like I did, your nervous system would be wired differently. And he's never said anything since. Why should I have to explain that? I shouldn't. I think he felt bad about it. I should. That's my nervous system. It's not anymore. I've gone through some changes, massive shifts this year. Even if my initial reaction now is to panic, it's only for a second. And then I think my way out of it. Now, I love pop culture references for everything to get the point across. Did you watch, I think it was called The Fittest 100 Asia on Netflix? So it was all different countries from around the world. Or I don't know if it was Australasia because Australia was involved. Australia had the strongest team. We thought for a few episodes in we were going to win. And then they made some dumb choices and then they got out. The Mongolian team ended up getting to the final with South Korea. Now, South Korea did not have the biggest, strongest people in their team. I think they had a few CrossFitters, so they had a lot of agility, but there was all different circuits and tests they put them through. Some are about strength, some are about mobility and agility. So you need that well-rounded team where you have smaller, female, flexible participants, and then each team had like a big strong man. But what South Korea had, and especially their captain, I think you would call him, it was a calmness. And they always in every tournament, you would watch them and you would listen to them and they would watch every other team and they would sit back, and when the situation, the circumstances changed, they would reassess and change tactic. And they won the whole comp. Now, I grew up watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and there's this line where they go, Xander says, if something comes up, I think, what would Buffy do? Now I think, what would South Korea do? What would Team Korea do? They were so brilliant. It's inspired me so much because you think you're down and out. You think you're losing. And if you calmly reassess the situation, you can think your way out of anything. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. It's such a good show. So in life, the people who panic burn energy, and the people who adapt conserve energy. We're all very tired. Don't waste your energy on panicking. Think your way out of things. You could probably also tie that into the show Survivor. It's not just about strength too. You got to, outsmart, outwit. But then a lot of that is relationships, and I I find that I'm a jarring character. You either love me or you really hate me. And I said to my husband, I'm pretty sure I'd be out in the first or second week. And I think he would win because he's I don't want to use the word passive because it makes him sound like he doesn't have much personality, and he really does. But he's a slippery little sucker who will he's a chameleon who'll adapt to different groups. He'll befriend people on different levels, and everyone loves him. But people will not notice him for a little while and then notice him when it counts. Whereas I think I walk in so loud, you can't not notice me, which sometimes is to my detriment. But that's okay because I ain't going on Survivor. Shift 5, confidence comes after action, not before. Confidence comes after action. One of the biggest lies we tell ourselves is, I'll do such and such when I feel confident. I'll do such and such when I feel ready. No. Confidence is the receipt. Action is the purchase. I've referenced so many times how nervous and shaky my voice was in the first few episodes of doing this podcast. Couldn't sleep the night before. Everything just felt scary and flustered and icky and wrong. Not wrong, because there's that voice inside me that's saying, this is so exciting and you have something to say. So it's that same adage as, speak even when your voice is shaking. I always say, like the Scream movies, once the murderer takes the mask off, it's just a pimply teenager that you realize you can actually outrun. There's something about the not knowing that creates that element of fear. So anything new is going to feel scary. So don't think you're going to attempt something in the first instance and feel confident, even if you see other people and you're like, they seem confident. I said this when I was on The Voice, but maybe they just show it in different ways. And being nervous about something can be great. I remember if there were ever performances where I wasn't nervous, sometimes they lacked a little bit because I needed that extra, but sometimes it's just excitement and we just call it nerves. If there's something that you really care about and you really want to do, of course you're going to attach all these emotions to it, which can come with a little bit of fear and doubt. Practice does make perfect, and the more you do things, the less fear there is around them because it just becomes mundane. So none of it begins with confidence. You're going to take the action first, and the confidence will come over time. So don't talk yourself out of doing something if you feel low on confidence. Do it anyway and ask yourself, really play over in your mind, what is the very worst thing that can happen? And if you can live with it, do it. Because the very, very worst thing that you could do is not try and live with regret. And it doesn't even need to be something scary or career or success. It can be something as simple as instilling boundaries with people. And I often reference that it's so hard in the beginning and you'll meet with resistance in the beginning, but you and the others will get used to it as you keep reinforcing them, as you keep flexing that muscle. So keep going. Shift 6 is shifting the wording and flipping the narrative on self-belief. Self-belief isn't, I'm amazing. Self-belief is, I've got me. Self-belief isn't an arrogance. Don't think you have to be like the biggest, loudest, arrogant person. It's reliability. Imagine asking yourself, if everything fell apart tomorrow, who would I want beside me? Become that woman. Become that woman for yourself. You stop abandoning yourself. You stop talking yourself out of opportunities. You become someone you can depend on. It's a very powerful shift. Let's bring it home with shift 7. Stop trying to predict life. Become someone who can respond to life. The insecure person is a person who tries to control every set of circumstances. That is A, never going to work, but B, exhausting. Don't waste your energy on being that. Be the person that understands that so many things are out of your control. You can only control what's in your control. And the main one is how you respond to challenges. This point ties everything in. The driving from Sydney to Perth, but only seeing 10 metres in front of you. That is doable. Being the flexible reed in the storm rather than the tall, proud oak. The read is adapting, not predicting what's coming ahead. Team South Korea bringing home the gold in the fittest 100, not being the strongest, not being the biggest, being the smartest. Reassessing situations, not panicking in the face of adversity, and adapting. Anyone who has kids, especially your first kid, you realize you don't have all the answers, you don't know what's coming, but each and every time you've figured it out. Life rewards adaptability, not certainty. You might have heard me reference, I think it was the last episode of 2025, where I said, next year I'm not going to outsource as much. I'm going to tap in and trust myself. Now, there have been certain instances, if there's been health issues, where I've had to go check things out because that's out of my jurisdiction. But I have tapped in. I have listened to my body. I have listened to my soul, what I need. I've removed what I knew was causing friction. And I have up-leveled my life in a way I never have before this year. It's been phenomenal. I think about there's so much divisiveness in the wellness space, and there's so many. I'd never even heard of the term grifters until this year, and people are turning against Jay Shetty and Mel Robbins, whatever you think of them. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant, because I think what people are sick of is people acting like they know better than them, or they are better than them, and convincing them that they need to follow them or spend money. And I think people are just sick of being told what to do or being sold something. Now, yes, I've started a coaching business, but what I always say to my clients is that I'm not better than you. I don't know more than you. I'm helping you tap back into something that's lived in you the whole time. Now, it's just like Dorothy and her ruby slippers that she clicked 3 times. It was in her all along. We don't have to rely on others, but sometimes we've quietened that inner voice, and sometimes we just need a little helping hand to guide us back to it. That is all I'm doing. Every single one of you knows the answer to what you need, but there's a lot of white noise. And sometimes you need someone else to point it out. I can't see the tip of my nose, but you can see it. So sometimes, and coaches have coaches. It's okay to have a mentor. It doesn't mean you're not okay on your own, and it doesn't mean that person's better than you. Sometimes you just need someone to take you by the hand and guide you back to yourself. Every area of my life shifted when I started trusting myself. I was told externally in words or actions that there's something wrong with me. I just wasn't right. I didn't know what I was doing. And it just always caused friction inside me, because there was a voice inside me screaming that, wrong. You know what to do. You know what you need. The goal is not to become fearless. The goal is to become so deeply rooted in yourself that fear no longer has the final say. Confidence isn't necessarily walking into every room believing you'll succeed. Maybe it's walking into every room believing, whatever happens, I'll figure it out. I'll handle it. You will handle it. You are handling it. If your old mindset is, I hope this works, let your new mindset be, let's see what happens. Fuck around and find out. It's a subtle change, but psychologically it's huge. Hope this works comes from needing a specific outcome. Let's see what happens comes from curiosity. And curiosity is calm. You don't build an extraordinary life by predicting the future. You build it by becoming the type of woman who trusts herself with whatever the future brings. Something very freeing in that. Life becomes a whole lot less scary when you stop trying to control what happens and start trusting the woman who will deal with it. I hope these words have been so helpful for you. I know they've helped me a lot in my journey. I thank you so much for being here today. If these words resonated with you, feel free to give them a like, and please share them with someone who you think will benefit from it. Please take some time in the next week to really do something to fill up your cup. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.